basically, what's wrong with all of you for not having Tom Brady number 1 over Aaron Rodgers at quarterback? I had to explain that, again, this is like choosing between your children here.
Why do you hate the Patriots?
Right?
I know.
Tom Brady, yeah, I probably should know that this camp took place in Boston, so a question like that should have been expected. Very loyal fans. But Brady checks in at number 2 this year. I really don't want to overthink this. Unless you have, either one of you has a concern or has some sort of fear that the proverbial cliff is reached by Tom Brady, there's no reason to argue with the idea that he should be one of the top 3 quarterbacks drafted. Do either one of you want to pick a fight on this?
I don't want to pick a fight. I just wanted to say, it's kind of like, who was it that I think Marshawn Lynch, when he was a running back, we're like, every year we say this might be the last year. And then he goes and he does it again, and puts up the big numbers. And I think Tom Brady, it's like until it doesn't happen, it's hard to make an argument that age is going to affect him. I will just say this, though. Do you remember last year when there was little chatter about a sore Achilles? And there were some long balls that were missed. He had difficulty a little bit pushing off for some of the deep throws, and for a few games in there, you could see a little hint of it. If anything were to crop up, that's the only problem I can see. Otherwise, and I'm reaching.
So here's the real question on Brady, I think, Mike, we all here at ESPN collectively preach patience on quarterbacks, right? I mean, draft a quarterback late. But at one point, does it just become too ridiculous to bypass someone like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, the co-A or co-number 1 quarterback in drafts this year?
That is a well-timed question because just this morning I was up in round 7. Early round 7. I'm near the turn.
I think you're up at 7. I was like, oh.
No, I'm not that crazy.
Late.
I'm not sure what time I was up this morning.
I'm not that crazy. I have kids waking me up at 4. I'm not up at 7. But I was up at the early in the 7th round, and he was still there. I took him.
Crazy. Yeah.
I took I'm okay. I'm pretty much loaded at receiver. I had Travis Kelce. I was good at receiver. I had 2 good running backs I took in the first 2 rounds. I will gladly take Brady and get an edge at quarterback.
Yeah. This really comes back to, Matthew always says it, like, know who you're drafting with.
Right.
If you know in that room that is people who are waiting on quarterback, then you might be comfortable waiting, and you can still get Tom Brady in the 7th or 8th round.
I tell you what, this bothers me that I can't recall who it was that tweeted this morning, but the idea of being patient on a quarterback sort of was born out of when people are taking Brady or Rodgers at the end of round 2, and we're saying, no, wait on him. Mm-hmm. But if it gets to round 5... Or do I have a problem with you taking Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady at pick 42? No. The point is, don't take them at 19 or 20 when Dalvin Cook or Mike Thomas could be sitting on the board. Brady, consensus number 2 in our ranks. The Patriots' backfield, much like the Browns' backfield we discussed a couple of days ago, has a lot of players involved. Let's begin with Sony Michel. I have a little bit of an update on him. He actually left Patriots practice, which just concluded minutes ago. And he walked off Patriots head trainer Jim Whalen. No specifics on the injury. We're just noting it in case something bubbles up in the next couple of days.
He did walk off, though.
Yes. So, Stephania, if we have information in the next couple of days, I'm sure we'll update us accordingly. Let's hope and presume for right now that it's not something serious, Mike. He's being drafted on average at running back 20. You and I are the most bullish on him amongst the rankers at 22. What's the upside here for Sony Michel? How does he achieve top 20 status? What needs to go right?
Yeah, I think he can't. Well, I think he needs to get 200 to 230 touches to do that. I think if he's in that range, he'll be fine. He could score 10 touchdowns. I have him pretty close to that actually this year. Obviously, you never know if he struggles with fumbles or drops out of the backfield, whatever it is, he could be demoted. Obviously, that's a concern for any rookie, but massive ceiling, averaged almost 8 yards a carry last year. That was best in this class, almost 3 yards after contact. So, I like him. I'm shooting for upside here with that pick, and I think he can do that in this Patriots offense.
I think we mentioned earlier he had just 9 catches over the past 2 seasons, but
it's in his skill set.
It's very much in the skill set. That was, I think, a much more about the team that he played for and how dominant Georgia was. They didn't need to throw their widers to their running backs. They were just chewing up yards, and he was a big play waiting to happen. There was some scuttle before the draft, Stephania, that he had a knee issue that was going to bother teams. Do you have any information or context on that, or is it something that's concerned you at all? If you aren't that familiar with it, then the answer probably didn't concern you that much, right?
No, it didn't. It wasn't something that concerned me that much. Just on that point, the Patriots are notorious for taking a couple of these guys who have injury concerns that might let them slide in the draft, but they were obviously worried enough that somebody else might snap him up soon that they took him as early as they did. But they have chosen guys who've had injury concerns. Rob Gronkowski was coming off back surgery.
Yep. Sure.
And there were a lot of people who were concerned about that. So they've been willing, and I think they have very good medical evaluations. So I think you can take some comfort in that.
Part of the reason why others are concerned about Sony Michel is because Rex Burkhead's still a thing, very much a thing here in this New England backfield. He was re-signed to a 3-year deal this offseason. Mike, you and I both have him ranked at 36, a little bit lower than the consensus ranks. I will say this about Rex Burkhead. He is a really, really talented player who does, as our good friend Evan Silva from Roto-World says, he's good at the game, right? He does basically everything pretty well. Very good pass catcher last year, scored 8 times on 94 regular season touches. That's ridiculous. The concern is merely this. The Patriots also like him as a special teams coverage guy. They like him as a punt return man. Apparently he's worked there during training camp so far this year. That he has so much value to the team on 4 downs that I don't know that I see him being the bulk of the carries type of player. What other concerns might you have, if any?
Yeah, well, he's never, and you kind of mentioned this, but he's never had more than 74 carries or 30 catches in a single season. That's been his ceiling so far. He was 12th in fantasy points from week 7 to 15, but you kind of nailed it. I think there is room, and we can get into this more in a second. I think the narratives around Patriots running backs in fantasy are a little off topic, or off the mark, but they can support 2. I think they can, and maybe he's one, but I think he's the guy that settles in as a flex, not a guy that has an RB1 ceiling over a full season.
Here's the good thing for the Patriots running backs collectively is that over the past 2 seasons, only the Cowboys, Saints, and Bills have run the football more as a team than the Patriots. So there's going to be carries to be had, and we know that there's not just carries to be had, there are rushing touchdowns to be had, and also receptions to be had for a Patriots running back. James White, for 3 straight years, has at least 40 receptions and 3 receiving touchdowns. He's the only running back in the NFL that can say that. Stephania, if your ranks were to come out right now, would they even include James White in the draftable discussion?
Oh, I think so. And I think going back, we were referencing mock drafts yesterday and where you can get some of these people. I think this confusion about what lies ahead for the Patriots backfield and who's going to touch the ball most makes it so cloudy that people sometimes forget. There's still value in someone who's not touching the ball as frequently if what he does with the ball when he gets it is score. And James White certainly showed that he was a threat in the red zone, and that's where he got a lot of his opportunities from Thirsty Kyle. 22 red zone touches last season, 19 for his career prior to last year. So the Patriots will go to him in the red zone, and I think that, especially when you're looking at plays where you don't know whether they're going to throw or run, and he has the versatility that you're looking for, I'm a fan of James White.
Yeah, I think he's got, in a deeper league, flex appeal, perhaps. Yeah. But I think in a 10-team league, fine if he sits on the waiver wire for the first couple of weeks of the season. This question comes from Fake Football 2, who wants to know which New England running back ends the season with the most touchdowns, which could be different from which player leads the team in fantasy points amongst running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fancy ourselves a little forecast here. I will go with Sony Michel. Mike, how about you?
I have Michel easily. I have him with 8. I have Burkhead with 5 and James White with 4.
Yeah, if everything pans out after today, we'll see what he left the field with, but otherwise, Sony Michel.
All right, let's make this a poll. As a matter of fact, we want to hear what you, the listeners and the viewers, have to say. So go to the Fantasy Focus, at Fantasy Focus on Twitter, follow that account, and start voting. I think the more that we get these polls activated, the more that people are going to be a bigger part of this show, and we can have some fun with it. So I believe Not Cool Keith has the reins on, Kyle has the reins on the Fantasy Focus handle. Follow it and vote in the poll about which New England running back will finish with the most touchdowns, this year. Let's get to the wide receivers. And we know that Julian Edelman's going to miss the first 4 games of this year. I think we can all agree that once he plays, he's going to be a massive part of this Patriots offense.
Just to note on that, I mean, he's doing very, very well. Remember, he got hurt in the preseason. We always talk about the seasonal calendar in terms of when the injury happens. We were talking yesterday about Allen Robinson having him week 1. Well, Julian Edelman's injury happened even before that. So he's had plenty of time to rehab, and he's been his work will be managed as they go through the preseason, especially because they know they have the cushion of the month. But he's been taking part in everything where he's expected to participate so far with nothing holding him back.
I've got him ranked highest, Mike, amongst all of our rankers here. I think you may have him. I mean, you're at 40. I'm at 30. Here's the reason why. Is I sort of view this in a comparable light to when Tom Brady was suspended. You miss 4 games, but you can fill in at quarterback and then have the best quarterback in fantasy the rest of the way. I think if you can fill in Edelman's spot for the first 4 weeks, you might have a top 15 wide receiver the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think you may, but I'm going back to 2016. I mean, first of all, keep in mind, he's never finished better than 18th. He's never finished the season better than 18th in fantasy points.
So maybe not a top 15 wide receiver.
It's possible. I mean, when he's playing, obviously season-long totals tell us something, but not everything. It's a weekly game. But if you look back to 2016, he had a pretty big season. He caught 98 balls. He only scored 3 touchdowns. He led the NFL with 10 drops, and he finished outside the top 30 in 3/4 of his outings. 58 wide receivers had a better rate. So he had a couple big games for you, but he was hurting you most weeks. So I think there's some red flags. He's obviously a couple years older from that season, coming off the injury, and they have other weapons in there. Obviously, they can mix some guys in. So,
but don't you think? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but don't you think that Brady, Edelman can? Because it's so special. I mean, we always talk about all the weapons that Brady has, but who are the guys that he looks for? That you know he's going to look for? Edelman and Gronkowski. Yep. And, when Amendola sort of had to step up with Edelman out last year, Amendola's workload increased probably more than everybody wanted, knowing that he's a guy who's frequently injured. Yep. But it still wasn't that. And that, to me, is where Edelman's value is, because you see the trust factor. And I would think as Brady gets older, if there's anything, he's going to rely the most on the people that he's consistently gone to.
So I'm a little higher on Edelman. Sounds like Stephania is going to be in that same boat when her ranks are out. I think Chris Hogan might be being underdrafted. Maybe, though, Mike. So I have him at 23. You've got him at 31. Is your concern that you believe his touchdown streak last year, which was so phenomenal, is just difficult to sustain or difficult to repeat this year? What are the mitigating factors on Hogan?
Yeah, I mean, he was, like you kind of touched on, he was 10th in fantasy points before the injury, so he was obviously doing a pretty nice job. But again, I'm gonna lean on season-long points for better or worse here. He has never finished better than 60th. Never. He's never put a full season together as a fantasy star from beginning to end. And that has to bother you at least a little bit. He's almost 30 years old. And I get the pluses. I do like him as a fringe wide receiver too. I think he's in that conversation, especially on a week-to-week basis, but that's the negative side.
My counter is this. He missed a lot of time. The only year he ever had a chance to finish the top 60 wide receiver was when he was playing with Tom Brady.
Sure.
He was well on his way. He hurt his shoulder last year, and they were very cautious with that.
He had a bad injury to his shoulder that I don't think people really recognize how significant it was. If you go back and look at the hit that he took, he got blasted with his shoulder really exposed. Remember, he tried to come back, and he didn't even last through that game. It was just, he was not comfortable, and they knew there was something more significant. So I'm hearing that he is in incredible shape for camp right now, that he looks fantastic and fast. And Mike, you don't like lacrosse players. Why?
Just clear bias. Hashtag.
Shout out Wesleyan, Division III national
bias.
See, Field, I lobbed it to you. I gave you that.
Thank you, Stephania, for that. Another Patriots wide receiver will emerge. Let's keep an eye on guys like Jordan Matthews and Kenny Britt and Philip Dorsett and perhaps Eric Decker, who visited the team on Monday.
Who reported that, Field?
Probably Matthew Berry.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Did I see Field reporting that?
I think that was Field Yates. I get alerts.
Did that happen during our podcast? Were you doing that while we were doing a live show?
No, that would be cool if it happened then. But Field Yates on Twitter, @FieldYates. Follow me, and I'll try to do my best to entertain you and inform you. For Gronk, he's our number 1 tight end. Travis Kelce has finished in that spot over the past couple of years. A quick question here from Keith.
Yeah, Dan Tower Anderson asks, with tight end being such a thin position, shouldn't it be valued higher and drafted sooner? Now, I'm not sure if he means thin as much as he means top heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, take it away.
Again, I think, well, Mike, here, I'll serve it up to you. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I got it. To some extent, I think Gronk in round 2, Kelce and Ertz in round 3, which is roughly where they're going right now, are perfectly fine values. But I do think there's a soft spot in ADP right now. It's Greg Olsen and Delaney Walker in the mid-round, round 6, 7. That's where I'm attacking right now. If I miss them, I mean, Ingram, Graham, that's fine. If I miss on them, I'm going to throw a dart at Jordan Reed and hope for the best. But you're right. After that, there's a lot of question marks there. So I agree with getting one of those, we'll say top 7 guys feels pretty good to me.
I think the sweet spot for Gronk, by the way, because people always ask, how high is too high for Gronk? If it's after pick 20, game on for me.
I agree.
I agree for me.